Hi, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff going on in Virginia. Of course, they already have their governor's race, and Juan Williams, who apparently, I think he's no longer with the Five, but I don't know if he no longer has a contract with Fox at all. I was just kind of saw that digging today, and I'm just like, I hope they talk about this on the show, because he wrote a terrible piece in The Hill regarding the governor's race and how parents are basically, when they say parents' rights, when parents are concerned about what their kids learn in school, it's just code for white race politics. So regardless if you are Hispanic, if you are Black, or if you are white, who cares? If you're concerned about there being pornographic things in your kids' school, books in the library that they can check out, if you're concerned about critical race theory, which is a terrible ideology, and it is being taught in schools, FYI, Juan Williams, he claims it's not. It's not code for just white politics. Parents have the right to be concerned about what their kids learn, and they have every right to be involved and have a say in what's in the curriculum. And if they can't break through, then they should definitely pull their kids out. But to pretend like all these parents with all these concerns are just I don't know, right-wing lunatics is insane. So we're gonna be talking about this piece today. I'm gonna read the whole thing and just break it down why it's so incredibly stupid. I think it's beneath Juan. Sometimes I watch the Five and Juan wouldn't be there. When Juan was there, I'm like, oh, Juan, what you're saying is crazy. And then when he'd leave, they get someone worse, and I'm like, oh my gosh, where's Juan? But this is just too far. We've talked a lot about the race in Virginia and the sort of things that have been going on in Virginia with the schools and so on, and it's just nutty. And I keep saying it's really not that hard to just listen to parents and to be sympathetic to their concerns. And even if you feel maybe they're wrong on some things, you have to come to some kind of compromise where you explain your side, where you're coming from, but you have to listen to where they're coming from, and somehow meet in the middle, or get them to come to your side or so on. But you're running to represent them, and to just totally just throw them to the wayside is absolutely bonkers. But that's what Terry is doing. And that's what Obama is doing. Oh, this is just right-wing propaganda, gaslighting, culture wars stuff. And the parents are saying, no, I've seen this with my own eyes. Like, I've checked out these books in the library. I know what is in there. My child came home crying because they said they were evil in a history lesson. So you have people who have just quit on the spot at these school board meetings because of the things that they're teaching goes against their Christian values or whatever. So you can't just ignore everybody. You can't just pretend everybody is your political enemy because the truth isn't convenient for you. What would it cost? What would it cost to just listen and care about what these parents have to say? What would it cost? Some of you know I didn't pretend. I just showed up at a Democrat picnic. Didn't tell them I was Republican. And some of them were very nice people. We had nice conversations, but they did totally believe all Republicans had no empathy, didn't care about people. And I had a conversation with the chair of Oakland County for the Democrats about critical race theory, because they were trying to do something to kind of fight back all these Republicans who were fired up about getting involved in the school board. And I gave them some advice. I'm just like, you guys really want to push critical race theory? Like, that seems like it's going to be a losing issue. And they didn't know anything about that. They admitted it to me that they hadn't really looked too deep into it, but they are convinced that people against it are just racist. Or maybe they've looked into it and know it's not a good thing to teach your kids. So they can keep pushing the politics. And my advice was, I'm a Republican, but I gave them some good advice. But they're dedicated to a political talking point, and it doesn't make any sense. I don't know if losing in Virginia will be the shockwave that they need, because they shouldn't be losing in Virginia because it's a very blue state, and maybe they'll win. But it's in everyone's best interest if they lose, and not just because I think Democrats will govern poorly. It's it as far as a cultural war thing and how we're headed, and the Democrats keep pushing these radical things. They need a jolt of reality where people say, I'm not going to let you brainwash my kids and do all this terrible stuff to my kids. So we will see what actually happens with the race. And we'll get into this article, but it's just maddening to me. It's just maddening to me. And I didn't mean to go into my rant so early, but I'm annoyed with Juan. I'm annoyed with these people. It doesn't make any sense. They say that we're the ones without empathy, and they don't care about people unless it's the people who are going to vote the way they want them to vote. And that goes beyond this particular race and the school board stuff. It's with racial stuff too. There's a lot of Black Lives Matter people marching about the mandates right now in like places like New York, and they're trying to pretend like it's all just crazy right wingers who don't want the mandates with the vaccines and stuff. But you have BLM people marching and saying, no, this is tyrannical, and they don't care. But they love when BLM was marching the streets for the George Floyd stuff and Jacob Blake and all these other folks during the summer, and they did crazy. There was crazy stuff going on with fire, with arson and looting and rioting and so on. But now they just want to ignore him, even though now they're like peacefully protesting. And I'm not saying everyone was like doing crazy stuff last year, but man, there were some. We have eyes. We have eyes. We saw what happened last year. But anyway, please go to blacktnews.com. Check out the different articles that I have, different content that I've written. Please check out different merchandise that I have. I got some seasonal sort of stuff. Got like with the pumpkin spice season shirts. I got cute little mugs. I got this shirt that Facebook wouldn't let me run an ad for because they said it's political and I'd be trying to change the minds of people. Well, no, duh, Facebook. But my money, my business. You can always wear that and trigger someone when they say, hey, abortion isn't your business. It's like, you guys want my taxpayer dollars to be involved with it. So yeah, it's my business, and immigration's my business, especially when you guys want to give $450,000 to illegal immigrants. We talked about that last week. We got the You Are Not That Special mugs, and we got other stuff going on. So please visit blacktnews.com, check out different merchandise. And if you would just like to give to support the show, you can go to blacktnews.com/donate. I appreciate everything you guys are willing to do. Make sure that you're liking the page on Facebook, you're subscribing on YouTube, you're following me on TikTok, and all my handles are at Black T News, except on Twitter, it's at True Black T. So let's jump into things. You guys know I like to start with something funny, and this is all related to what's going on in the Virginia race. We did cover some of this at the end of the show. Well, no, I think it was the beginning of the show last week about the fake out with the the tiki torches, and so basically there were some operatives who were dressed like white supremacists. They had glasses on and so on, and tiki torches, and they're standing in front of a Yunkin bus. So they were supposed to be like giving vibes to like Charlottesville. And so Democrat operatives were tweeting like, oh my gosh, look at this. They're, these white supremacists are standing with Yunkin. Eric Swalwell, who's a Democrat in Congress, he's on the Intelligence Committee, I think. And he said birds of a feather flock together. Obviously, this is all a hoax, because who would do this? And Republicans started looking into it, and they started identifying people, and they were Democrat operatives pretending to be white supremacists to slander Youngkin. So the Lincoln Project actually took credit for it, and the Lincoln Project is in they're former Republicans who just hate Trump, and they're the Democrat darlings. They took credit for it. Though people who claim that they worked with the Lincoln Project to make this happen pretended like they were surprised, like, oh, look at this, as if they didn't stage the whole thing. So now they're pretending that it was just staged to prove a point, and they'll maybe keep doing it, which it's utterly disgusting. But if you haven't seen the picture, this is the picture. But someone actually, so this is the funny, because someone, if you took a photo of some guys, where they're trying to, it seemed like they set up a rally trying to get Trump supporters to catch them, and there were some guys in the crowd who obviously looked like FBI agents. So someone photoshopped them in with the obvious fake Republicans standing by the Yunkin bus. So that one was pretty hilarious, and I commend them, that because that is funny. That's absolutely hilarious. What is crazy though about this, they got a black guy to pretend to be a white supremacist. It's crazy that he participated at all. I mean, that is pretty darn nutty. That is pretty darn nutty. But I know at least two of those people were identified, the girl and one of those guys. So you couldn't pay me enough, and I know they're not paying these people well. Though I guess Lincoln Project had it because they spent like a quarter of like 240 something $1,000 in the race against Youngkin to help the Democrats. So that's the person they're siding with. That guy right there, the Lincoln Project. That's sort of insanity. So at the same time where they're trying to convince you that parents speaking out about all of this madness going on in Virginia at the school board meetings and or whatever, they're trying to say if you're concerned about that, then you're just into like white racial politics speaking, code, and it's all, GOP theatrics. But they're willing to do this. Or here's the real photo. They're willing to do this. That's just madness. That is absolute madness. So I want to get to Juan's article. I do also want to talk about a pilot who allegedly said "Let's go, Brandon" over the weekend on a Southwest flight. These people have lost their minds about it. People are very upset. They're so triggered. People are triggered that the pilot did that, and CNN anchors were basically like, tweeting at Southwest wanting some kind of investigation or him fired or whatnot, as if it pretending like this person did something on the line of letting people know he was a terrorist. And I'm not kidding. I have a tweet I'm going to show you guys later. People are upset that the "Let's Go Brandon" songs were like number 1 and number 2 on the charts, like bumping Adele. And I guess I'd be annoyed if I was Adele, but, I mean, she's had great, hits anyway, so I guess she'll get over it. But there's people all around the world. I saw a TikTok today of a man from Australia who's like, I love this. He's like, I buy every single song that's called "Let's Go Brandon." So it's hilarious, but the left is losing their minds about it. They're super annoyed, which just makes it way, way funnier than it even maybe ought to be. I mean, it's pretty hilarious. But let's get to the thing that's gonna annoy me right now. So let's talk about Juan Williams and his crazy, crazy article that he wrote.
Michigan homeowners, would you?
Sorry, there's an ad that popped up. So it's in the Hill. I think it just popped up today, and people were talking about it, and it's so crazy. Some people were like, "Oh no, Juan is dead on." I'm like, really? You really think Juan is dead on about this? You guys really don't care about these parents at all. So in the Hill, Juan Williams, parents' rights is code for white race politics. Okay. After white supremacists spilled blood in defense of keeping up Confederate statues in 2017, the GOP candidate for governor of Virginia, Ed Gillespie, said the monuments should stay up as a matter of heritage and history. His TV advertising featured threatening images of Latino gangs labeled illegal immigrants involved in murder and rape. Okay, so the Charlottesville thing was totally egregious. It was crazy. I was actually at a authors event that day, and then I actually left a little bit early to go see a Ninja Warrior competition. It wasn't the official American Ninja Warrior. It was like a kind of a sub competition thing, and it was like on the other side of state of Michigan. So I had a great day that day, and I remember like, you know, did my author thing in the morning, selling my books and signing and meeting kids and stuff, and then went and enjoyed like my favorite thing. Everyone knows I love ninja competitions, and obviously not competing in them, but just watching them as an observer. And I remember looking at my phone just in awe that the world was so crazy. So I remember I went to the office like on Monday, and people were talking about how nuts of an event that it was. And there are people arguing, or not arguing, but sort of debating. Some people thought, yeah, we're not too fond of Robert E. Lee, but there's people who don't believe in just erasing sort of history and taking statues and stuff down like that. You can't just cover your eyes like the past didn't happen. So people don't necessarily want to keep these monuments up because they're racist. My opinion on it was that's a local issue and they can do what they want. I don't really care. That was my opinion about it personally. But I just couldn't believe that it had got so heated. It was so surreal. But the sort of ads they ran against Gillespie, there was an ad, and I don't know if you guys remember, but it was like somebody was actually chasing them down as if Ed Gillespie was chasing down some kids in a car. And Republicans talk about, oh, this ad is so terrible. It was terrible because it was immoral to make such an ad. But it was effective for sure. Now, Juan mentioning that Gillespie using ads talking about Latino gangs and so on, MS-13 was a terrible gang who did absolutely egregious things. So the fascination with Democrats continuously trying to defend them in some way, not defend their actions, but like Trump had a conversation, for example, one time on a panel, and they were having a conversation about MS-13. And if you listen to the context of the conversation, it's clear he's talking about MS-13 and referred to them as animals. And so remember, the media was like, Trump calls Mexicans animals. It's like, no, we're talking about MS-13 specifically. And so that spread like wildfire, as they often do. But it got like debunked, I think, pretty fast comparatively, like especially compared to like the Fine People hoax, which we're gonna get to. But there is still people saying, "Hey, you should never, never, never call other people animals." It's like, well, what if people are like, I don't know, chopping off heads and stuff like that? You don't think like we can call people animals when they do that, when they rape people, when they just murder them, just brutally? But you're so offended because someone called them animals? Trump said a lot more offensive things than that about people, and you're just going to bat for these people. Okay, if that's what you want to do. So here Juan is phrasing it as if, I mean, he said his talking about Gillespie's and his ads for Latino gangs, they're pretty particularly brutal gangs. So phrasing it like he's a racist because he mentioned these people doing these terrible things, which people care about immigration, period. You don't have that doesn't make you a racist because you want people to come in legally, and you're concerned about the type of people who are breaking the laws to come and break the laws. That doesn't make you a bad person. So there's some framing as if you are, or Gillespie was, because he appealed to a crowd who obviously care about this issue. So one goes on. The racially loaded culture wars campaign, straight from then President Trump's playbook, gave Gillespie a push, but he ultimately lost the race to Democrat Ralph Northam. So it's funny that Gillespie was bad because he wanted to keep the monuments up because that's our cultural history and stuff. And the point is tearing down the statues. You can't just ignore the past, and history is pretty complex. Which is the argument for these people defending critical race theory, by the way. Like, you can't just ignore history, right? So he's a bad guy because he mentions illegal immigration and want to paint him as some kind of racist. And then Northam ended up winning. Do we recall what Northam did? Oof. That is Northam. That is Northam, the governor of Virginia. And so is, now we're not sure if that's him in blackface, and we're not sure if that's him in the hood. And we're not sure why someone would put that in a yearbook other than, hey, it was a different time. People were just, I guess, more open about these sort of heinous sort of things. But he's one of those two people. I don't think he ever fessed up to which one. So that's who they decided to elect instead of the guy who cared about illegal immigration and wanted to take out MS-13. So I think that's important context that Juan Williams decided to not mention in his hit piece against parents, by the way. So this is who the current governor is. And here's another thing. I don't know if too many people know this, but there was a controversy during the campaign because the lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, he's a black guy, and some of the literature that they sent out in areas where they knew was a little bit more racist, they made sure to leave his picture off of the lit. So that was a thing that was being talked about in consultant sort of political circles. And when Northam got in trouble for this controversy with this, people were saying that he needed to step down. You guys might have remembered that when this came out. But that if he stepped down, that would make the lieutenant governor a black guy, right? So Justin Fairfax would have been the governor. Oh, but then they started talking about Justin Fairfax, and all of a sudden there was a scandal about him. So conveniently timed when Northam was in trouble. So, for all these people who want to pretend like there's such a big racism problem in the Republican Party, which they want to bring up when we're talking issues, popular issues, and they want to distract and say, look, there's a racist. Look, there's a racist. Or they have to plant stuff like this to distract so they can go, look, there's a racist. They're actually leaving black people off of literature and have governors with this in their history. So, of course, that information is not in Juan's little op-ed that he wrote. It does not exist in there. Okay, just thought you guys should know. Now, Virginia Republicans are back with the new and improved Culture Wars campaign for 2021. The closing argument is once again full of racial division, but this time it is dressed up also as a defense of little children. No, it's dressed up Democrats. It's dressed up, but those are dressed up Democrats pretending to be white supremacists to try to frame Republicans. That's the people who are dressed up. He didn't mention that in his little op-ed. That's funny, Juan. You didn't do that. He said the rallying cry is parents' rights. It's a campaign to stop classroom discussion of Black Lives Matter protests or slavery because it could upset some children, especially white children who might feel guilt. Oh, that's what Juan is saying. It's just white people don't want their feelings hurt. I think it's a little deeper than that. Here's a clip of a parent explaining why she no longer has her kids in public schools.
My children are now in private school and are thriving. We had specifically moved chased out of LCPS due to the swift and uncompromising political agenda of Superintendents Williams, Ziegler, and the school board that have forced upon us. First, it was in early spring of 2020 when my 6-year-old somberly came to me and asked me if she was born evil because she was a white person, something she learned in a history lesson at school. Then you kept the schools closed for a year and a half despite the science indicating that it was safe for kids to return. And now you've covered up a rape, then arrested, humiliated, and falsely accused her parents of being domestic terrorists. I wish I could return my kids to LCPS. Private school is expensive, and I want my kids to be able to walk home from school with their friends in their own community. I refuse to allow you to destroy our schools. They are not your schools, they are our schools. You all should be ashamed, and you should have the moral courage to admit you are wrong and step down.
Yeah, so parents being concerned because their children are coming home after their history lessons and saying, "Am I evil because I'm a white person?" That's a little messed up. That's a little messed up, Juan. I think it's a little deeper than white people's feelings getting hurt. I think it's a little deeper than that. And you know what? It's how is it hard for them to imagine, how is it hard for Juan to imagine that this is going on? And I've talked about this before plenty of times, but there's documents like this. This was an infographic made by the African American History Museum about whiteness, and it paints whiteness as bad things, right? But there's a lot of good qualities on here that are good, like critical thinking. That's a sign of whiteness. I like to think I'm a critical thinker. So what? So if I happen to have those things, it's just me being infected by whiteness. And if I wouldn't have those things, you can't hold it against black people because they're not white. I mean, and it just goes on. There's some crazier things in here if you believe that, if you're not open to there being more than one God, of Judeo-Christian values as a sign of whiteness. If you're on time, you believe in hard work. If you if you believe intent matters, like in the justice system. I mean, there's just a bunch of crazy stuff. Like, but those are the sort of things that critical race theory and will get you, believing in all this woke garbage. That's where it'll get you guys. Just a bunch of nonsense. At this time, the Trump intimidating Republicans think they have struck political gold. Well, they kind of have right now. Unlike their earlier defense of Confederate monuments, the Parents' Rights campaign message at first glance looks to have zero to do with race. And it doesn't. I said, that's me interjecting. It doesn't have anything to do with race. Or it shouldn't have anything to do with race. That puts Democrats on the defensive. They are in the uncomfortable position of calling the attention of suburban white moms to divisive racial politics being used by Republican Glenn Youngkin's campaign. Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic candidate, calls the Republican message a racist dog whistle. Youngkin's closing message of book banning and silencing esteemed black authors is a racist dog whistle designed to gin up support from the most extreme elements of his party, mainly his top endorser and surrogate, Donald Trump. They're doing everything they can to tie Youngkin to Donald Trump. They're doing everything they can, instead of talking about issues. And they're going to keep doing it as long as they feel that it will work. Recall, it was Trump who famously said there were very fine people on both sides of the violence sparked by the Unite the Right in the 2017 rally of white supremacists in Charlottesville, Virginia. So I just want to revisit that time because there was a really huge hoax that happened, and we called it the Fine People hoax, and people didn't really push back for it for a while. I think I have to credit Scott Adams, the Dilbert guy, with really setting off the pushback against the Fine People hoax. Because I think a lot of Republicans were just really frustrated and didn't want to push back, or were tired, exhausted, and didn't really want to push back against it. So it took like an observer. Because Scott Adams he votes, politically pretty much left. He just was sort of fascinated by Trump, and he's a common sense guy, I guess. And he's like, this is what actually happened. Here's a transcript. But it kept getting pushed. You had people like Don Lemon, like, our president is a racist. And they kept going on and on and on and on and on about it. And so when you had January 6th, and then they had impeached Trump for the second time, they talked about the Fine People hoax. And you actually had the lawyers bring up what the media spun, and what the lawyers that the Democrats had spun versus reality. So I'm going to go ahead and play that particular video, because if you haven't seen it, and if you don't know, it's important to know.
And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides?
Charlottesville lie. Very fine people on both sides. Except that isn't all he said. And they knew it then, and they know it now. Watch this.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him?
I do.
Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly?
No,
I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people. Neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest, and very legally protest, because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this, there are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final? Does anybody have, you have an infrastructure.
What makes you think?
This might be today the first time the news networks played those full remarks in their context.
Yeah. Probably was. It probably was the first time they had really played all those in the full context, when the House manager, well, not when the Trump lawyers showed that during the impeachment trial. The second one. So just a little FYI, the fine people thing, it's a hoax. Trump wasn't calling white supremacists very fine people, so that's why we say it's a hoax. Now, there's people now who try to just totally ignore that they were implying that Trump, or not even implying, there are people who were saying that Trump said that neo-Nazis were very fine people, that's who he's calling very fine people. And now they've shifted the goalpost to, well, if you were defending those statues, then what's very fine about those people? People who don't want to ignore that history happened, that you can't just go away. Now, I said my position on it. Whatever, that's a local thing, and if they vote to keep it, that's on them. If they vote to get rid of it, that's on them. That's whatever. That was my thing when it happened. That's their issue. But I understand people going there to protest. No, now knowing that there was some crazy stuff that, well, I don't know how you could know all that stuff was going to happen, but I just wouldn't have been there. I just probably wouldn't have been there. It seemed like that was an opportunity for some chaos to happen. So I would have made some better decisions for myself. But not everybody who went there was evil. Not everybody who went there was a white supremacist. And the very fine people thing, this moment really stained Trump for the entirety of his presidency. And over something he didn't say. He absolutely clarified that he was not talking about neo-Nazis, and he condemned them totally in the video where they said that he was for them. So just thought it was important to play that for some more context going through Juan Williams's article. So Youngkin says he will back Trump if the former president is the GOP nominee for the White House in 2024. Why wouldn't a Republican back the Republican nominee? That is not a crazy thing to mention. Some of the Charlottesville white extremists are now on trial in a civil case for their violent attacks. President Biden recently said the violence at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th was also about white supremacy. Yeah, that's because Biden is a moron, and it doesn't make you smart for repeating it, Juan. Biden said he'd be a uniter, but he is nothing but a race-baiting, monstrous fool. I can't stand Joe Biden. And you know what? His campaign video was launched off of the Charlottesville hoax. And to continue spreading something so dishonest, like it's not good for the country to believe that their president is supporting white neo-Nazis. That wasn't good for the country, but people pushed the lie because they wanted power more than they wanted a nation united. And Joe Biden was one of those people who was just so blatantly selfish. Absolutely disgusting. Okay, there's a long history behind the latest racist political appeals. It is not long ago that racist Southern politicians rallied against integration with an argument for states' rights, a call to be free from federal law, seeking to end segregation. FYI, the president of the United States right now, his vice president, claimed that he was the one trying to keep her from going to schools and for to be integrated. So that's interesting and not in this article. Now the message is that white parents are being ignored when they complain that their children are uncomfortable learning about racism. Frankly, it's always going to be uncomfortable and has been uncomfortable for parents, I would assume, and for Black kids in the schools too. I've heard stories where like they're reading a book, and then like if you're the only Black kid in the class, and everyone like instinctively like shh, like that's awkward, and life will be awkward. But parents have not rallied against that sort of stuff in the past, so maybe there's something more to it right now. Like the mother in the video I played, where she was upset because her child came home asking if she was evil, or these kids who have to go on privilege walks, or when there's books that say that whiteness is the devil, or you have news organizations that say whiteness is bad, or African American history museums laying out infographics, detailed infographics about how whiteness is bad, and they're just good traits, period. And they all equate that to whiteness. Maybe there's a difference from now to like from the point of time when we've been learning things in school, Juan. Republican advertising now fails to mention the movement in Virginia was born from opposition to advanced placement high school students reading a prize-winning novel about the horrors of slavery, beloved by Nobel Prize winner Toni Morrison. So the whole beloved controversy. So years ago, Terry actually vetoed a bill, and so he's trying to frame it as if all this retaliation to all this is just from this book Beloved, simply because it was a book dealing with slavery. That's not the case. That's not the case. I don't know if it's some of the case, to be fair, because I don't know everyone's true motivation, but there is sexually explicit things in there, like gang rape. So if they don't want maybe their child reading a book that has gang rape in there, can you blame a parent? My dad wouldn't want. I'm a black person. I'm a black person who actually wrote a book, and it takes place in it's about a slave. It's a historical fiction fantasy book. Okay. I've watched a lot of movies on the subject, read a lot, My dad would not have probably wanted me to read a book in high school that included a gang rape, even if it was about slavery. He just probably wouldn't have. So that doesn't make you a racist bad parent. It just doesn't. So they're framing it as if it's all about race. And maybe there's people uncomfortable about it, but we obviously have read books about slavery in high school or in that time period or whatever. We've obviously read books about that in high school. To just pretend that's solely what it is about is not honest. But they keep trying to do that because they want you to be focused on race, 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 race. That is why they did this hoax in front of the Yunkin bus, where they had people dress up like white supremacists because they just want you to be focused on race 100% of the time. And they want to guilt all these suburban white women who are concerned about their kids in the schools. And they want to guilt you, be like, well, I can't be seen as a racist, so I have to vote this certain way. So they will stage hoaxes like this. And they'll keep saying, hey, this book is about, they didn't want this book about slavery, learning about the pain that we had to suffer in the schools. It's not about the race. They're framing it so dishonestly. They're framing it so dishonestly. One commercial features a white Virginia mother complaining that McAuliffe opposed the law to allow parents to have their children opt out from studying unnamed books. The mom, Laura Murphy, does not mention that she is talking about Beloved, nor does she mention that she is a conservative activist whose son went to intern in the Trump White House. Does it matter? Why does that matter? She's still a parent. They may be Trump supporters, but they're still parents. And obviously, if Republicans are going to find people to be in their ads, you think they're going to go pick up Democrats to go do it? Of course they found a Republican person. But guess what? You just admitted she's a mom. She's a mom. What does it matter that her kid interned at the White House? She only offers, and she says that he doesn't think parents should have. He says McAuliffe says that. Sorry. She says that McAuliffe doesn't think parents should have a say. He shut us out. Toni Morrison is in the great American tradition of authors exploring racial dilemmas, from Richard Wright's Native Son to Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird and Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. Now, obviously, there was some mature subject matter, I guess, into Killing Mockingbird because it all surrounded about a woman accusing a man of raping her. But obviously there wasn't anything sexually explicit in the book, so we read that, and I read that in maybe was it ninth grade? It wasn't high school. It wasn't like far into high school, but I'm pretty sure I read it in high school. And I don't. Granted, I don't know how graphic the gang rape scene is in Beloved, but again, the thing that Terry vetoed was a bill not just about Beloved. It was saying that if there is content that is sexually graphic or explicit, that parents deserve the right to know. Parents should be notified. And if they don't want their kid reading it, they could have some kind of alternative reading assignment. That's what the bill was. And then Terry vetoed it. He vetoed it. So there was actually a moment in the debate which got heated and got really, really a lot of play now, when he said he didn't believe that parents should have to be able shouldn't have the right to pick what their students read about. So things like that have made people very upset because how are you going to tell parents that they shouldn't have a say in what their kids should learn about?
Veto books, Glenn, not to be knowledge about it, also take them off the shelves. And I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out and make their own decision.
You vetoed it.
So, yeah, I stopped the bill that I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. I get really tired.
I don't think parents should have a say in what should be taught. That's crazy. Maybe that's the thing what people are upset about. Maybe people are upset about that. They just want to pretend it's about, people, it's racist dog whistles. It's a white code. Why shouldn't parents be concerned? And you know what? It only gets worse because he was asked, what's going to happen if you win? And he just gaslighted them. This is all Republican conspiracies.
If you win, how are you going to work with those parents who have concerns about how things are being taught in schools across the Commonwealth?
Let's be very clear here. This is all generated by Glenn Youngkin. This is what MS-13, the Republicans used on Governor Northam 4 years ago when he was running. They try to find a divisive tactic.
Yeah, people should talk about MS-13. They're bad guys. But to just pretend like parents don't have legitimate things and Republicans are just pouncing. Have you guys noticed that when there's commentary, when Republicans are upset about something, instead of reporting on the thing, the media will be like, Republicans pounce. It's Republicans react to this. Like when Northam, for example, was talking, he had an interview and he was talking about if an aborted child survives, and they're like, well, we'll have to make it comfortable and then just do what the parents decide. No, the baby survived the butchery. You guys can't just provide care and find someone else who will take care of the baby. I mean, I guess if it can even medically be saved, but you're just going to listen and say, no, we wanted it dead, so you take care of it. So at that point, he's just talking about blatant infanticide. And the mainstream media didn't really want to cover it because obviously it's evil and monstrous. So when Republicans were talking about it nonstop, the story became how Republicans were reacting to Northam rather than Northam says a very terrible thing and believes a very evil thing. But why are we surprised? Because this man is the black-faced or KKK guy. We're not sure. He's one of the two. He didn't fess up about which one he was. He never really quite fessed up. Let's keep going. I knew Morrison, and she was no racist. I don't know, Juan, I don't trust your judgment. I don't know if Morrison was or wasn't, but I just know I don't trust Juan's judgment, FYI. So I'm not gonna take his word on it. It's like I interviewed her at the Hartford Forum on television. We talked over the years before her death. The attack on Beloved is a direct attack on all great writing about race in America, especially from the Black point of view. No, again, I've written books about that era, about slavery. And people have come up to me and said, man, it was hard to read some of that. It was, I'm sure, hard to go through it. But again, I wouldn't have been comfortable reading about a gang rape in high school. My parents wouldn't have wanted me to either. If they knew that was coming. If they were notified. If they were made aware. Which they would have appreciated being made aware. And you know what? It wouldn't have mattered if I was in the 9th grade or 12th grade. They would have not wanted me to read it. They would have wanted the alternative. And maybe you guys are like, oh, your parents are prude. They sure were. They're good parents. I had good parents. So he's just framing this, trying to distract you from what the real issue was. The issue was about materials, and it wasn't just Beloved. It was just books in general that had sexual explicit things to let the parents know and have the option of having their kids opt out of it. One goes on. It is disgraceful. It should disqualify Youngkin and every other GOP smear merchant trafficking in it. Juan is the one trafficking in the smear. The obscene attack on great writing is gaining strength by being paired with another GOP racial tactic aimed at scaring parents. The Virginia school children might be exposed to arguments about ongoing systemic racism from the teaching of critical race theory. Before we get into the critical race theory portion of this article, I do want to mention some other reading that has been exposed at in Virginia. So here's a parent who's at a school board meeting, and FYI, she's going to read some of this stuff that was at the library, and it's going to get pretty graphic, but I think we're all grown-ups.
After seeing a September 9th school board meeting in Texas on pornography in the schools, I decided to check the titles at my child's school, Fairfax High School. The books were available, and we checked them out. Both of these books include pedophilia, sex between men and boys. Both books describe different acts. One book describes a 4th grade boy performing oral sex on an adult male. The other book has detailed illustrations of a man having sex with a boy. The illustrations include fellatio, sex toys, masturbation, and violent nudity. Pedophilia here. From the author, Maya Kobabe, quote, "I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I am going to give you the blowjob of your life, and then I want you inside me," end quote. From the author, Jonathan Evison, "What if I told you I touched another guy's dick? What if I told you I sucked it? I was 10 years old, but it's true. I sucked Doug Goebel's dick, the real estate guy, and he sucked mine too." This is not an oversight at Fairfax High School.
Sorry.
This material.
There are children in the audience here.
Do not interrupt my time. Do not interrupt my time.
I would like to remind everybody.
I will stand here until my time is restored and my time is finished. These books are in stock and available in the libraries of Robinson,
for high school
Langley,
students, ma'am,
and Annandale High School. Pornography is offensive to all
Clerk,
people. It is offensive to common decency. It is the reason why the MPAA
is our next speaker is Alex.
Yeah, so people are concerned about the sort of gross things that are in their schools. I also covered another book that was in an elementary school about 2 kids, and one of them looks way older. And frankly, I thought they were both boys in the photo from the pictures, but one had very short hair and one had a long braid, and one was staying over another person's house, and so they both decided to sleep over, And the one with the short hair admits that this is a girl. She believes that she's a boy, and she admits it to her friend. And then they're like, "Oh, I'm glad you told me." And then they say that I like you. They like each other. They hold hands, and this happens. So this is another case where my dad would not have been okay. And mind you, this was an elementary library. So besides the gender confusion stuff, these kids are in the bed together, making out. And the one with the braid looks way bigger than this smaller one. I don't know what the age difference is, but it's concerning. So for people to just pretend that people are only concerned about racial things and only critical race theory. Juan does not mention in this article the rape of the girl in the bathroom, by the way. He doesn't bring that up as if that's a concern about parents. I'm pretty sure that's a huge concern with parents. It's a big news story that the mainstream media wanted to ignore, and the Daily Wire went and talked to the dad. And then it became a bigger story, and we talked about that a lot on the show. Juan does not mention it in his article. Let's go on. Critical race theory, broadly a focus on racial disparities as a fact of American life, is not explicitly taught in Virginia's public schools or anywhere in American public schools. Now, that's crazy. We know that's false. It's crazy that he would even do the whole absurd absolute thing anyway, as sort of a guarantee, like it's not being taught. But it is absolutely being taught in schools. And we know that Kim Crenshaw, who is one of the founders of like critical race theory and intersectionality, has actually been a part of different talks where they teach critical race theory insights. So I've written an article about this on blacktnews.com. You guys can go to the website. But I explain it this way. They will not teach it like word for word, break it down on the college course level. No, but they will teach you particular things about it to sort of, I guess, wet your beak in some regard. So they explain it as critical race theory insights. And so when they have their own private meetings and talk to their, fanatic teachers and all these people who are for it, they admit that they teach elements of it. Now, if you read like critical race theory and introduction, these people are intent on changing the world. Just from a common sense standpoint, let me pose this question. If you wanted to change the world, would you, with your ideology, would you wait for the chance that a child will grow up, graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, and then go get a law degree, and then end up in your class? Or would you find other ways to incorporate it in lower education, TV, the pulpit if you can? No one is just waiting for you to maybe go to law school one day to indoctrinate you with the stuff they want to totally change the world. It's everywhere, including where you work. My sister sends me all kinds of like dumb internal document. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. She lets me see stuff all the time. I guess stuff, and there's been lots of corporate stuff that's come out, like Coca-Cola, for example, and the whole "it's not good to be white" or "be less white." It's like Coke's. It's not their slogan, but that's what people were saying, even replacing Coke bottles with a "be less white." So don't pretend. Do not pretend like this stuff isn't in school. Here's another thing that they were at. Kimberly Crenshaw talking about critical race theory insights. It's absolutely in public schools. It's not to the degree that you would learn in law school, no. But it's definitely there. And it's in your kids' TV shows. I don't have the clip like prepared, but I totally showed you guys a clip of the TV show Arthur. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that racism happened to this black person. And it's like, I can't believe that either because you're all animals. How did this happen? Where are the humans in the show? I used to watch Arthur. I don't remember there being people in the show. You really couldn't just see a smart person would just use like racism without using race. They'd be like, oh my gosh, they were mean to the bunnies or the anteaters or whatever the heck these things are. I don't remember what everybody is. They're mean to the monkeys. Like they were, they would use it in some kind of different way and make it like a metaphor. But no, they say, oh, they treated someone different because they're black. These aren't human beings. But that's the kind of stuff that's on your kids' shows. It's just madness. It's bonkers. Anyway, back to Juan. But Republicans nationwide have made it a boogeyman to excite racial divisions and get their base to the polls. It's not a boogeyman, by the way. The Conservative Heritage Foundation and other big right-wing donors have fueled the fire with what they call the Great Parent Revolt of 2021. They see this as a conservative response to what Heritage dubs the racial tide of educators, nonprofits, and federal education bureaucrats who are working to rewrite American history. It is 100% true that Republicans are rallying, conservatives are rallying, parents are rallying. It's not a secret. It's not a secret that they want to attack and destroy critical race theory, that once you hear it, that they want you to associate it with something negative. It is no secret that they have an all-out war on it, and I'm glad about it. I'm glad about it. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Pretending, but if they were honest, they wouldn't have to lie about it not being in schools or not being on TV and not being in workplace. They wouldn't have to lie about it. They wouldn't have to lie about it. But they do because they know that it is terrible. In Florida, right-wing parents recently complained that fourth graders had to learn how to spell isolation and quarantine. The parent said those are scary words. It seems a little weirdly thrown in here, by the way. Things have gotten so bad that the National School Boards Association pleaded with the Biden administration in September letter to use federal law enforcement to protect school board members from threats of violence and other forms of bullying. See, and that's the crazy thing that he put this in here, especially since the school board admitted in emails that they didn't admit it, but there was a conversation, I guess, that only two people, the president and the CEO, were the ones who were coordinating with the White House to make the letter. And the rest of the school board wasn't comfortable with it. And they ended up apologizing for it. The Justice Department, who wrote a memo in response to it, didn't have any data. It all went by the school board's letter. And the rest of the school board, they apologized. They thought the language was too strong, and they said they would have never approved it. And they complained because now they have constituents coming up to them saying, parents saying, do you think I'm a terrorist? So the fact that he even put this in the article is just delusional nonsense. It's delusional nonsense. Why would you even bring this up? As they even had to write a letter. Yeah, because they're plotting against parents. So two people from the school board coordinated with the White House. The letter got sent to the White House. And in response, the DOJ writes a memo making a task force using no other data to support the rise than the letter itself. And the sort of people in the letter mentioned is the father of the daughter who was raped in the bathroom by a boy wearing a skirt. So for Juan to even bring that up, that is probably the most ludicrous part of this entire article that I've spent all my time reading and talking about. That is the most ludicrous thing to me. that he would bring up that letter. And FYI, if you have not been to blacktnews.com, I did write a letter detailing the sort of breadcrumbs from the two people who wrote the letter. There's links with their emails and Garland when he was in Congress, and there was more stuff that happened afterwards. But I have a lot of great info in that article. So if you have not seen it, please go to blacktnews.com and share that around. If you're a parent, it's important for you to read it, and you should share it around with other parents as well. Because it's crazy, everything that happened, but it's crazy that Juan, so-called journalist, would even mention that in his piece when the school board was not in the right to do that. Which the other people in the school board acknowledged that that wasn't their place to contact the DOJ about that. Suggesting the Patriot Act, using the Patriot Act. If people were legitimately threatened, those are local issues. That would not even be a federal thing. So everything was out of order, as we would say in the church world. Out of order. So last bit, there's a little bit more left of this article. Polls show the big money coming from the right has resulted in the parents' rights movement gaining traction among white voters. By the way, there's like quotations around like parents' rights as if to mock it. Like as if parents don't have right. And it's crazy to me. And I'm a little disappointed in Juan because I'm pretty sure he's a big school rights advocate. I mean, that's school choice rights advocate. So he understands how important it is for kids to get a good education and the parents be involved in where they send them. So it's disappointing that he would chill like this. It's like I said, I think this article is beneath him. So while it's stupid, sometimes I'd watch The Five and I would get really annoyed with some of the things Juan would say. This is just a little above and beyond to me. It's so above and beyond. But at this moment, it is not about parents. It is about exciting the far right base by stirring up racial division. If it works, Republicans will have reason to continue down this dark path. Okay, to win elections. It's a dark path. And it says in the article, Juan Williams, an author and political analyst for Fox News Channel. I haven't seen him. I haven't really watched Fox in a while. And no, it's not because of the election night stuff. I just haven't. I don't like to watch actually a lot, and I see a lot of highlights and stuff, but I don't like to just sit around and watch cable news all day. But so I'm not sure. I definitely haven't seen him on The Five in a minute that I've noticed. But this is a terrible, terrible, terrible article. It's so delusional. It's so dishonest. I don't know what he thinks he has to gain by writing it. Just gaslighting parents as if what they say, what they think doesn't matter, as if everything involved is just racial. So I'm disappointed in Juan. He comes out with a lot of stuff I don't like, but this is it's ludicrous to me, like I said. So I wish Youngkin the best. There were polls that had him ahead. It is a blue state, so I don't know how it's going to go, and I frankly don't want to get my hopes up either. But I think it's important for Democrats to lose this one because maybe it will shake them. Maybe it will shake them and they will say, you know what, maybe we need to rethink some things. Maybe we need to listen to our constituents. Maybe we need to stop going down this super radical path. Maybe we need to stop, with this critical race theory stuff. Maybe we need to stop pushing it so much. Because there's so many Democrats who don't even know what it is. And there's a lot of people, period, who don't understand what it is, to be honest. And they just sort of have an idea of it. And like Democrats will say, it's just, teaching honest history, which isn't true. And the Republicans have their opinion on it and can't quite. And I've met a lot of parents who are talking about it, and maybe they don't articulate it in the best sort of way. but I've heard CNN get people who are for it and say, hey, it's a worldview, it's a lens, and it can make teachers bias, and they'll say it's a good thing. And they say they think it's a good thing because they've already given in to the concept of it. So I've also written articles about critical race theory as well. So please go to blackteennews.com. There's some good resources on there, well-sourced stuff as well. So go to the website if you want kind of a deeper understanding of that. You want a deeper understanding of what's going on with like in Loudoun County and in Virginia and the whole issue with the National School Board Association's letter and Merrick Garland. I got stuff on that. So please visit the website. And I think there's some important reading to do on there. I do want to mention briefly that there's people going crazy about the Let's Go Brandon song and phrase, which if you don't know what Let's Go Brandon is, you've been living in a cave, I guess, at this point. But there was a racing game, some kind of race somewhere, and a woman was interviewing the driver, and she's like, oh, everyone's cheering for you. They're saying, let's go Brandon. And they were not saying, let's go Brandon. They were saying, bleep Joe Biden. And so instead of people saying the swear word, people are saying, let's go Brandon, to mock how the media tries to cover for Biden. So it was a funny moment, but it really speaks culturally to a higher sort of thing. And so allegedly a pilot from Southwest Airlines said over the intercoms, let's go Brandon. And people were upset. So you had like CNN anchors tweeting at Southwest saying like, really? So people trying to draw attention to it, making a big thing to, I guess, get this guy fired or suspended, investigated, and so on, which I don't think he should be, if that's what he said, because they're still investigating it. I don't think people should really be injecting their politics like that at their, during their job. People just want to get from A to B without being annoyed by that stuff, which people on the other side love doing that. It's, I don't know, they can't take the taste of their own medicine, I suppose. But the CNN anchors tweeting at Southwest is, it kind of seems like they have an agenda of wanting bad things to happen to this pilot. And again, it was unprofessional, but he obviously can fly a plane and land it. So that's a good criteria he's met there with this job. But there was one CNN analyst who actually said this crazy thing. As an experiment, I'd love for Southwest Air pilot to say, long live ISIS before taking off. My guess is that 1, the plane would be immediately grounded, 2, the pilot fired, and 3, a statement issued by the airline within a matter of hours. Yeah, so a little FYI, saying let's go Brandon isn't the same as saying I love ISIS. It's just not. To even compare them shows me how hysterical you are. It shows how detached from reality you are, or you're just a liar. You're just a blatant liar, but you should. These people who lie like this, do they just have no like ability within themselves to be embarrassed? Because this is embarrassing. This is an embarrassing tweet. And this is a verified analyst on CNN. Comparing let's go Brandon to long live ISIS. So and honestly, honest to God, if you might be annoyed at your pilot for saying a phrase like that, but if you had somewhere to go, would you want your plane to be immediately grounded because someone said let's go Brandon or let's go Biden or let's go Trump? If I had somewhere to go, because obviously you're on an airplane, I would not want my plane just immediately to be grounded because someone displayed a dislike or a like for a president. It's just bonkers. It's just bonkers. But these are the kinds of people who go on your news channels. Maybe not your news channels. Maybe you don't watch CNN. But yeah. This is an embarrassing tweet. And there are other ones that were along the same vein. But this one was the most absolutely ridiculous from a professional person that I came across. So I thought it was important to share it with you guys. So people are upset about this pilot speaking out, doing the Let's Go Brandon thing. People are of course upset about the songs being number 1, number 2, pushing off Adele and her top, spot. It's funny. And it's been going on for a few weeks now. And as long as they keep making it a thing, I guess it'll probably continue to be a thing. So I guess it's still a thing and will be for quite some time. But you know what? If you think back to there's a rodeo clown that got in trouble because he, I don't know, mocked Obama or something. And people hated that clown. I think they got him fired. They just can't stand when people don't like their people, but people can. Do you guys remember when Trump was running for president and people made naked statues of him and they put him in California and New York and were just having travel around? Just these really grotesque statues of a naked Trump because they just hated him and was so embarrassed by him that they were willing to do something so disgusting and immoral. You can think whatever you want about Trump, but why would you demean yourself in such a way? I don't know. I'm concerned about the world. I'm concerned. But hopefully you and I can make a difference, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I guess you're here listening, to be armed with information and I guess hopefully entertained as well. So we can try to make some kind of positive change together. But anyway, please go to blacktnews.com and check out that content that I talked about, those different articles, and share them around. If you enjoyed the show today, and if you enjoy the articles that I have, please go to blacktnews.com/donate, blacktnews.com/donate, and consider leaving a gift to help Black Teen News, whether it's $10, $15, $20, $50, $100, you want to keep going. I thank anyone who's willing to support to help Black Teen News continue on. And you can leave a donation, or you can also consider buying merchandise. I love the goat hoodie. And I do have it in different colors for those of you who are concerned about white and spilling things on yourself. I got it in pink, black, dark blue, and red as well, I think. And so go ahead and go to the website. You can get it also in t-shirts and stuff. I got this Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden shirt. I got pro-Trump stuff. I'm not the victim you're looking for. And I got other stuff going on too. For those of you curious, I did mention a few times that I do write books. So this is my historical fiction fantasy series that takes place during the Civil War. And so out of all my babies, this is probably my favorite baby. And I do love all my babies, but that's probably my favorite one. So that's my book website, ninjadustpublishing.com. So you guys can check out that series. So I do write a lot of books for older readers, I guess like young adult into like new adult, which is still kind of a younger demographic. And I do feed the Black stuff, by the way. I don't be having like gang rapes in my stuff. Ugh. But I do also have stuff for kids as well. This is a chapter book, Super Kid too, but a lot of great like conservative values in it. So you guys can check out that stuff on my website as well on ninjadustpublishing.com. And Christmas is right around the corner. We're already in Mariah Carey nonstop Christmas song season. It is November the 1st. It's already started. I've already seen the memes. I've already seen the videos of her smashing pumpkins and saying, now it's time. And I'm not. Like, that was on her TikTok earlier today. So go ahead and check out that stuff on the site. Please be a supporter and make sure that you're liking, you're subscribing, that you're sharing. Thank you guys to everyone who watches and supports. God bless you guys. And I will see you next time. And thank you guys I've read the comments. Thank you guys for commenting and being part of the live show experience. I just want you to know that I do see you and I do appreciate you. God